Hello everyone, welcome to this demo session on SAP Business Process Management and SAP Workflow in SAP Cloud Platform. Many of you have sent me an email asking about, Anubhav, can you just create a sample video on how can we manage the end-to-end business processes which span across different systems like SuccessFactors, Concur, SAP S/4HANA, ECC and Suite on HANA, and orchestrate throughout the entire business process with the help of SAP Cloud Platform. In this video, which is part of my SAP WebIDE Full-stack training available on my website onlinefioretrainings.com, we are going to demonstrate the features like how to activate the workflow service in SAP Cloud Platform, how to enable the workflow builder in SAP WebIDE Full-stack, and create a very simple workflow task. In the full training, you will see creating some demo scenarios, sample scenarios, wherein we will be able to call our SAP S/4HANA system through an API call, Auditor service call. We will also be able to create user tasks, user decision tasks with form-based screens as well as with screens which are custom screens, custom Fiori screens, and integrate it with SAP My Inbox app. We will also understand administration of workflows in SAP Cloud Platform, like testing a workflow by starting an instance of a workflow and also monitoring the workflow and analyzing the workflow log. In the next couple of videos, we will also look at the statuses, different statuses for workflow and variety of workflow tasks, and how does the propagation of the workflow context happens between these different variety of tasks. We will start with the introduction first, and then we will move on to some critical important business scenario modeling in SAP Cloud Platform with SAP WebIDE Full-stack. So let's get started. So what is business process management? So let's start. What is business process management? In the short term, it's called BPM. BPM nothing but it allows organization to manage their end-to-end business process which has involvement from different business roles so allows organization to manage their end-to-end business processes. These business processes has involvement from different roles to be able to orchestrate the complete flow. This is what business process management is all about. You want to have a business process in your company and you want to model that business process and automate it. And that's where one of the technique to automate a business process is workflow. So workflow allows us, organizations, to automate the business processes. Take a simple example. Take a simple example of leave approval business work process. For example, all of us have ever many times applied leaves in our company. We always have a start and end of a process. It's like a flow chart. Okay. So suppose this is a start of a process and this is end of a process. How do you model a business process? The complete business process comes in middle of start and end. So an employee opens a Fiori application or opens his mobile device and request for a leave. Employee requests for a leave. Now, when employee requests for a leave, what happens next is a notification will get triggered to the manager. Manager is going to receive a work item. Manager will get a notification saying that this particular employee want to apply for a leave. The type of the leave and the date between, or the hours for which the leave request was requested, then what ultimately happens, manager has to take a decision. So that's where the decision comes into picture, whether manager can approve it or reject the leave. Yeah, this is what happens when the manager approves or reject the leave. According to that, there is a mail triggered to the employee saying that your leave request has been approved. So there's a mail for approval, and then there is probably a mail for rejection as well, which reaches to the employee. So employee will know that my leave request was approved or rejected with the reject region. So now this is how typically your business process, this is one business process. Which area it belongs? It belongs to HR area. Okay, typically in HR area where you want to manage the leaves, you have this business process. So what are all the parties involved here? What are all the agents involved here? So here agent is nothing but the people who are involved in this business process are called agent. So these are all workflow terms. Okay, so if you see, who is the agent? An agent is the business role involved in the business process, right? So in this case, the agent is an employee and a manager. So there are two agents in this. One is an employee and one is manager. You will never say Roger. You will never say James. You will never say Matthias. You will never put finger on a person. Rather, you will put a finger on a role. Yeah. So you will say for this particular step, this particular role is required. So it's role based always. A business process, end-to-end business process is always role based. You can see different business roles. Look at the definition. It says different business roles. Very important to understand. It is talking about role. It's not talking about a person, it's talking about a role, because a person may leave the company, join the company, but a role remains fixed. In a particular business process, we always map these steps or activities to a role. So each individual activity which you see as part of business process is actually called an activity. Okay, activity is what? Each step involved in a business process is called activity. So we understood agent, we understood activity. Now there is a term called initiator. Who is the initiator? Anybody? Who is the initiator? Initiator is the person or the role who starts the workflow. Okay, who starts the workflow. In this example, who is the initiator of the workflow? It is the employee. When employee opens his or her email box and they say, I want to apply for a leave. That is what initiation, that's where the initiation of the process is happening. Okay, so a business process is modeled via workflow. So you see, this whole flow, this whole thing is called workflow. So workflow is what? Is a modeled business process involving multiple roles. It is collection of activities or tasks. Okay, collection of activities and tasks. This is the design time. This is the design of your flow. What is the run time? When somebody initiate, it runs the business process involving multiple parties. So what will happen? It will send a request to manager for leave. It will send a notification on his mobile that this particular employee applied for a leave. So that is what is called work item. A work item is an instance of an action performed in the workflow. What is work item? These are all the terms, guys, very important terms you all must know. So whenever you have a workflow executed, so workflow is the design time definition, of a business process which is automated. When a workflow is started, it creates a workflow instance. Okay, it creates a workflow instance. Suppose 20 employees apply for leave. Will the process be different for all 20 employees? Anybody? If 20 employees apply for leave, will the process be different for all 20? No, no. The workflow remains same for them, right? The workflow remains same for them, correct? That's the workflow. If an employee requests for an iPhone in the company, if an employee requests for a laptop in a company, will the steps change? If all employee request for a new smartphone, recently in my company they have given a smartphone for everyone. So if employees are requesting for smartphone, will this process be different? It will be same, right? So workflow remains same. What remains difference then? What is the difference? If 20 employees are applying leave, what is the difference? Anybody, what is the difference? It could be the data which is different. Okay, there are different employees, their managers are different, their number of days they want to go for the leave is different. Yeah, the type of leave they want to go with is different. So the data is different. The data in workflow is called context. Are you clear, guys, with this definition? What is a context? Because these terms are very important. If you understand these terms, your 80% job is done. 80% understanding will come. This is the biggest problem I see in industry. Everybody explain workflow, but nobody explain terms. They immediately go to system and start designing without explaining these terms. These terms are very important for anybody to understand the workflow. So the data which is flowing, the data which is used to start the workflow or the flowing data is called context. Are you clear? What is different between each workflow when the workflow is initiated? It is the context which could be different between each workflow. Is that clear, everybody? And for each workflow, when it is created, a workflow instance is generated. So if 20 employees applying leaves, how many workflow instances are created? Anybody? If 20 employees applying for leave, how many workflow instances? Perfect answer. You get 20 workflow instances. How many workflow contexts will be generated? How many workflow contexts will be generated? Anybody? 20 workflow contacts will be generated, one per workflow instance. Clear, everybody? Are you all clear? What is a workflow? What is a workflow instance? What is a context? Now, each item, each activity, when each activity in the workflow steps, okay, when each activity or a step, we call it as step. These are called steps. So one step, two step, each of these things are steps. Okay, guys, these are called steps. So each activity is called one step. So each step or activity, you can call it as anything. You can call it as task also. Yes, you're right. Each activity, step or task, when each activity, step or task is executed, what happens? It creates a work item. Is that clear, everybody? What is a work item? Work item is an instance of a task, a small activity or a task. It creates a work item. Okay, this work item is assigned to, a work item is assigned to whom? Anyone? A work item is assigned to whom? Possible agent. Agent or agents, it could be multiple. Suppose I create an iPhone request and I report to 3 managers. It may be possible in an organization that I report to 3 managers. So what happens when I create a iPhone request in my company? It goes to all 3 managers. So how many agents are involved here? 3 agents are involved. If any one of manager approves it, I will get an iPhone. So I don't need approval from all 3 of them. It depends again your design, again your business process. Sometimes your business process say that probably all 3 managers approval is required. Then only you will get iPhone. Then the model will be changed. So this entire workflow model will change accordingly as per the business process in the company. So idea is Whenever a work item is generated, it's assigned to an agent or possibly multiple agents. Multiple agents can also be involved. So these are all generic terms of SAP business workflow, which we all should know. And entire of all these processing and these modeling the workflow, they all comes under business process management area. There are dedicated BPM experts in companies who are responsible for designing it. But now, since there's more like cloud world, SAP WebIDE and stuff, like why we are learning it? We are learning it because I want to showcase new WebIDE Full-stack feature where there is a workflow modeler in the BPM. So what is the prerequisite to model a workflow? So before we get into system, I want to now give here two scenarios. First scenario, I already gave you the leave request scenario where I want to, scenario one, I want to design a workflow for leave request approval. The workflow, when it is started, creates a work item to manager. Manager has to take a decision whether to approve the leave or reject the leave request. And once manager approves or reject the leave request, accordingly a mail will trigger to employee. That's our first scenario. I will put it scenario number 2 because I want to start with the easy scenario so that at least you guys get used to it. And then later on, we can have this complicated scenario done. So I will first start with scenario 1. Okay. In scenario 1, what I want to do, I want to load product data, some product data from my ECC system or from my remote system by calling OData service. Okay. This is what I do. Okay. I will call an OData service to load some product data, manipulate the product data, and ask a person to order the product. Okay. Difficult to understand? Not so difficult when we do it using modeling. So what will be my first step? Again, remember, any workflow have a start point and end point. So you always do like this. So now first step is to read the data from some system. Okay. We will call some auditor service as part of first step. So when the workflow is started, the workflow context is start with the product ID. So input to the workflow context will be product ID. I will input a product ID into the workflow. Let's say 1. Now what it do in the first step, it should load the data from a system. It could be an S4 HANA system. It could be a ECC system. It could be Suite on HANA system. It could be an external OData service, external system, guys. Clear, everybody? We basically want to learn how to call an OData service from the workflow management tool or the BPM tool. Yeah, we want to do that. So it will make a call to some external OData service and it's going to fetch some data based on the context. So here I'm passing product. So it's going to call some OData service into the cloud or in your ECC environment or wherever it is. It's going to call it. It's going to load the data in for step number 1. In next step, whatever data it has loaded, I want to manipulate the data in the next step. So I want to manipulate the data which it has loaded. So I want to change the context of the data. So data is all about context. So you initialize the context, you pump in this context. In this step, you based on that context, you're loading some data from some server via an OData call. I hope you all understand OData. This is what I taught in my first course in SAP UI5 and Fiori training. Those who do not understand OData, please go to my website onlinefioritrainings.com and please go ahead and subscribe. The course here on my website in offerings and downloads, you can go and subscribe to my course, SAP UI5 and Fiori training course. In that, I have covered everything related to OData basics, related to creating the UI5 Fiori application, JavaScript, HTML5, CSS, everything I taught you in this particular course. So you can go and subscribe to this particular course, guys. Very important. That is what you all have to do. Okay. So just do that. Then the next thing is what you need to do is you have to just come back in the next step of our workflow. After we get the data, we need to manipulate the data just to check it, if the data is proper. And then once after manipulating the data, I want to load a custom Fiori application for approval of this product. I already designed this app. I will show you in the system what I've designed. This particular Fiori app reads the context from workflow context and display in a custom screen. This app has also buttons like approve, reject, order, whatever I want. I want an order app, so I will just get an order button. When user click on the button, something should happen and it should end the workflow. So that's something we will not right now focus. We'll just keep it the scenario simple. We will just have this 3-step workflow. Is the scenario clear to everybody? Is the business process? See guys, to understand the workflow, business process understanding has to be good. If you cannot understand your functional business process, it is impossible for you to model a workflow. There are 2 parts here. One is understanding of end-to-end business process. Second is technical part. Our goal here is to understand both in this case. So I want to showcase some amazing stuff. In this stuff, I have 3 different use cases actually. Each step is a different type of step, so that I can showcase you all the types of steps. So we have a variety of step types in workflow, which I will also demonstrate in a minute. So all the different variety of steps I will be using in this scenario to make you aware, to make you used to this scenario, to make you used to the workflow modeler. Clear everybody? Are all of you clear with the scenario? Step 1, load some data from an OData service from external system based on the context what we initialized. Let's say I want to load data for product where product ID is 1. Now next step is I want to then manipulate this data. And then after manipulation, I want to display a custom Fiori application to the user as a work item. When the work item is generated, it will go to the inbox of the user in my inbox app, and their user can take an action. Whatever action user take, let it take, and then we are just going to end the workflow. That's a complete business process. The second one is the leave request, which is this one. We have already seen this. So let me just pick it up, this business process, and put it over there. So I just copy this business process and just put this over here. Same leave request process where leave request was applied by employee, and then employee will just wait for the approval or rejection, and manager gets a work item. And then when manager gets a work item, the manager is going to of course take a decision whether to approve or reject the leave. So here we will use another special type of called gateway. We use gateway decision to choose the option for that. Okay, that is what we will be doing. So let's take a break for a minute, and then we will continue guys, and we will discuss how to model this in the system. So now, first of all, to enable the features in SAP Cloud Platform for workflow modeling, what are all the things, what are the prerequisites which you have to follow? The very first prerequisite is, guys, we need to enable workflow service in SAP Cloud Platform. So what are all the prerequisites to be able to start designing the workflow? The first prerequisite is we need to enable the workflow service in SAP Cloud Platform. Now this service is again dependent on 2 other sub-services. The first service which it is dependent on is SAP WebIDE Full-stack service. This is prerequisite again to enable the workflow service. So WebIDE Full-stack must be enabled. Second is SAP Cloud Portal service, which is to get you a Launchpad where you can monitor the work items, where you can monitor the workflow instances, where you can start, stop workflow instances, suspend them, terminate them. Yeah, you can check the logs for workflow instances. All these reasons we need the SAP Cloud Platform portal services. So these two are prerequisite again for enabling the workflow services. Yeah, so let's go to the system for step 1 and see how can we do that. So I go back, let me go to the services, and we will quickly enable all 3 services one more time. So WebIDE Full-stack service, let me just check if it is enabled. Yes, you can see it's enabled. WebIDE Full-stack. Just go to the service, launch the WebIDE Full-stack. Now I just go back, and now I will also enable the portal service, which was enabled already in my account, but now you can see that also me getting enabled. So I just go and enable the portal service, which is not enabled right now. I just enable that. So it's enabling my portal service, which is also a prerequisite to enable the workflow service. You can see it's been enabled. Let's go back. And now let's enable the workflow service. So I come to the workflow service. There you go. And let's enable the workflow service. You see, it's not enabled right now. I enable it. So these are all the 3 steps which you have to do to enable, first of all, the workflow service. The very first thing we have to start with. Now, let's start WebIDE Full-stack. You can see it's a fresh instance of WebIDE Full-stack for my development. And here I have to create now a workflow project. To create a workflow project, step 2 is, we are now ready, workflow service is enabled. So now to create a workflow project, we need to also enable a feature. Okay, we need to also enable a feature. The feature is available in WebIDE for workflow modeling. So how do you do that? Let's go to the WebIDE. So a feature for workflow modeling in WebIDE. In WebIDE. So let's go and do that. I come back to our WebIDE and now click on the preferences button, and now you will see features. Just go to features, and now you see workflow editor feature, guys. Just enable this. Don't forget to save. Okay, it will create a problem for us if you forget to save. Just say save and refresh now. So it will reload our SAP WebIDE Full-stack, and now we are ready to design our workflow. Now the first step, as you can see, our first scenario, in our first scenario we have to call an auditor service. Now there is a free auditor service available on internet, which I also explained in my first course. The auditor service comes from auditor.org. We can utilize this free auditor service, which is offered by auditor.org, and then call that auditor service. In the same fashion, you can also call the auditor service of your ECC system, S4 system, or Suite on Hana system for that matter. Now, in order to invoke any auditor services from our SAP Cloud Platform, what is the bare minimum we need? Anybody? Even in the Fiori app, when you wanted to talk to an auditor service of your gateway, what is that which we created? Anybody? Absolutely. You need to create a destination to be able to talk to that auditor service externally, whether be it on ECC, S4, Suite on HANA, or any external. So I'm going to show you first the auditor service, which is available in public cloud. It's come from services.auditor.org. This is the website where you can go and subscribe a free auditor service available in the cloud. You can see this is the one, browse read-only Northwind auditor service. I'll go for that. And you see it has multiple entities, just some sample data they are providing. So I'm interested in this products entity set. So let me copy that and put it on the top with question mark dollar format equals to JSON. As I told you guys, I expect all of you to know what is OData service. So this is my understanding that you all have understanding on OData service, because that is what already covered in the first course. And now I see it's giving me some data for different products. I can also get the data for a single product by putting here products, parenthesis, the product ID, maybe just put product ID 3, press enter. It gives me exactly data for that particular product. So That is my auditor service. So I have to create now a destination to be able to talk to this auditor service from my SAP WebIDE. So for that, we will go back to our cloud platform, our trial account, go to my trial account. And now here, what I'll do is I will just go to the destinations, and I'm going to create a new destination to that. So now another feature you see, guys, advantage, the moment I enabled my WebIDE service, sorry, the workflow service, you see system also created a destination BPM workflow runtime. This was created by system automatically. Do you guess why this is used? I will show you the use of this later point of time, because our scenario is to design a custom Fiori app. So this custom Fiori app will be part of SAP WebIDE, and this Fiori app is also going to talk to your My Inbox app where you have your work items, right? Your My Inbox app is where you get your work items. Yeah, this is where you get. So how will this custom Fiori app exchange the data to this My Inbox Fiori app? How will it do? For that purpose, this particular service will be used, guys. Clear, everybody? Are you all clear? What is the purpose of having this particular service? This is why that service will be used. We will see that in the system. So just remember, there is by default a service destination created to talk to your workflow instances, workflow runtime, and that name of that service is BPM workflow runtime. Now, let's create another destination for our auditor service, which is there in the cloud. So I call it as Northwind, name of the service, HTTP, description, my sample data, URL for Northwind service. Let's go back, copy this up, put it here, put a slash, internet, no authentication required. The purpose, just add the purpose, WebIDE system and WebIDE enabled and WebIDE usage. These three things we need to mention: WebIDE system, WebIDE enabled, and WebIDE usage. So use WebIDE enabled is true. This destination can be used by WebIDE. WebIDE usage, the purpose is OData gen. For general purpose of OData, we are using it. WebIDE system is Northwind OData. Yeah, that's the name you can put. Click on save. This destination is now created. Let's do a check connection. Voila, you can see, guys, connection to Northwind is established. Response code is 200. Congratulations, we have successfully created a Northwind destination to talk from our SAP Cloud Platform to an external service. To draw it in a diagram, if you see, this is our SAP WebIDE Full-stack. And then there is a destination which is created. Couple of destinations are there. So first destination which we will be using is this Northwind destination, which is pointing to an external environment, completely external auditor service available in the cloud. So this is what we are actually going to do by communication, bi-directional communication. Request response, of course, will happen via this destination. Similarly, there is also another service which is predefined, pre-created. It's called Workflow, BPM Workflow Runtime. This particular auditor service is actually pointing to another service in SAP Cloud Platform called Workflow or Business Process Management Service, which is Workflow Builder, which you have it, and it is going to get a work item in My Inbox app. So in My Inbox app, you're going to get all the work items. So this particular service will be used to interact with My Inbox app with the instances of workflow. So that is what it will be used. And this whole box is your SAP Cloud Platform. Hope the architecture is clear to all of you. All these things are part of your SAP Cloud Platform. Are you all clear? Only external communication is this one, which we are making it via the Northwind destination. So these two are the destinations you have. In the destination section, this is a My Inbox app contains the workflow instances. And we're going to talk to that via this particular service. And then there is another one, WebIDE Full-stack is talking to this one. So WebIDE Full-stack is all going to use these destinations. Now, suppose you want to also configure email. Okay, suppose you want to send an email, guys, to somebody via the workflow. You want to use your Gmail or your company network. So your company also has a email server that is called SMTP, Send Mail Transmission Protocol. SMTP server your company have. Now I want to talk to this also. What is the bare minimum requirement to be able to talk to any external entity? Anyone? What is the bare minimum requirement to talk to any external entity? Again, a destination is required. So we'll also create a destination for talking to this email service. To send email via workflow. Yeah, sometime you may have a requirement to send email via workflow. We also have to configure a destination for that reason, that purpose. So that will again be talking to your send mail transmission protocol server in your company to send emails. Are you all clear? So how many total destinations we would need? So one was pre-created by WebIDE automatically. One was we created for Northwind, and this one I will show you creating later once we go to leave approval scenario. Are you all clear, guys, with the architecture? The diagram, is that clear to everyone? How the communications is happening from SAP Cloud Platform to all the external entities and all the internal entities within SAP Cloud Platform. If it's clear, let's proceed. So now we created this. Let us go ahead and start designing. So we have to also enable this feature now. We have also enabled the feature in the features of WebIDE. Step 2 is done. And now you can start creating the model or your workflow. That's the main step. So now before we proceed, let's also understand the task types. There are 4 types of task types which we have in workflow here in BPM in SAP WebIDE Full-stack. So the first type of task is as user task. User task is where a manual action, manual decision is required by agent, like approval or rejection of leave request. Right, guys? So user task is a place where some user decision is required. Let's say you created a leave request. Now your manager has to approve it, right? Your manager has to approve it. Now, first question to all of you, where will your manager see the work item? Anybody? Where will your manager sees the work item? Yes, perfect answer. My Inbox app. This is the application where your manager will see the work item coming out of the workflow. Okay, very important. This is a standard Fiori app. Now, we did not enable this Fiori app, right? We did not even enable it. Let's also put it in prerequisite. And as part of the step number 2 of step number 1, we need to enable the My Inbox Fiori app for testing purpose to see if work items are displayed or not. That is one part. Second part, in any company, suppose there is an error which has come in workflow. You started a workflow, there is an error which has come in workflow. How do you tackle that? Anybody? How do you tackle that error? Right? You have to tackle that error. How do you do that? So we have to also monitor the workflow. We need to make sure all the workflow instances are up and running. There is no error. And if there is an error, we need to analyze and identify the root cause for that error. So there are 2 Fiori applications which we will use. One Fiori application is to monitor the workflow And another is to also you can use the another Fiori app to test the workflow. Suppose you develop just a workflow, you can't go for production immediately. You have to test it. So you have to display the workflow. You have to manage the workflow. So you have two Fiori apps additionally enabled, where one you will use for managing the workflow and one for monitoring the workflow. So total 3 Fiori apps you would need, guys, and they're all activated as part of SAP Cloud Portal. Let me show you. They're free available for you. You can go back and now you can just switch to the services again and go to SAP Cloud Portal service. So just come down. I can just search so many services. Just go there. And now let me launch the service, SAP Cloud Portal service. I just launch it. In this, we have to create something called a site. So we will create a default site for the end user who is going to see this application. So there are multiple roles involved. One is administrator of workflow, whose job is mainly to monitor. And the end user will just see the My Inbox app. Okay, they'll just see My Inbox app. So go to site directory. And now let's add a default site. Click on plus. And I can say default one. Fiori Launchpad type. Click on create. You can also do it in another way, which I will show you in a minute. So you can see it has created a default site. Couple of things have been added. Now I can just go back. So this is my site which has been created. I can go back and you can see there's a default site which is created. Let's edit this site directly. So I can go for edit. You can also view this site and you can activate the site also. So that's how you have to create a site. Now maybe I want to run it. So how can I run it? A site template uses Fiori design template. This template may be provided by SAP. Fine, no problem. Let's publish this. And now you will get a link for this site. You can see you got a link. Let me click on the link to launch the site. It is going to launch an empty page for us. You see it's empty. And now I need to enable those 3 Fiori apps for our demonstration purpose. So I can go to this user icon, go to App Finder, and now you can see there are 3 Fiori apps which are inbuilt inside this site. You can enable them. Just add them to the home page. Yes, it is Fiori Launchpad actually. It's a Fiori Launchpad in SAP Cloud Platform. Okay. It's a Fiori Launchpad in SAP Cloud Platform. Now I can go back. You can see all 3 Fiori apps are enabled. One is for visiting the workflow items. Second is to monitor the workflow definitions. Third is to run, to test the workflows after when the instances are generated. So one is design time, one is runtime, and one is user perspective, where user will see the work item. Is that step clear, guys? Again, a prerequisite for all of you to get started. I've started with a fresh account, so you can see all these things I'm doing in front of you. You can do it on your own in your cloud platform portal. Okay. So all the prerequisites are now met. We have enabled the workflow service. As a prerequisite, we enabled 2 services, Workflow WebIDE Full-stack service, Cloud Portal service. Within the Cloud Portal service, we have added 3 Fiori apps as a default site. This is what we all have done. Now it's time to go enable the feature. So I go back to the WebIDE here, my WebIDE Full-stack, where it is running. It's running here. Go to the features. And we have also enabled the workflow editor feature, guys. Congratulations, all the prerequisites are done. Now you can get started with designing of your first workflow. Yes, you can start designing your first workflow and just check it. With one single step I will design, guys, just to showcase you. I right click, I say new project from template. And now I will just choose in category, business process management. Select a workflow project, say next, just give a name. I say my first demo and I say next, and I can give a name for my workflow details. So this is the name of the workflow which will be created inside that project. The first workflow, one project can have multiple workflows based on your need. So I will just give this name is just for demo, first demo. This is just a sample workflow for demo, and I can say finish. System will now create a project. Inside that, it will create also a workflow for me, which is, one workflow will be created inside. You can see workflow, and you see here the workflow here. Can you see, guys, start and stop? Are you all clear? This is what we just learned in a minute back. We have a start and stop. Are you all clear, guys? A start and stop of a workflow. Very amazing. It's a graphical tool. You can also go from top to bottom. You see the conventional typical workflow transaction in SAP GUI, top to bottom. That view you can switch to. You can go to also horizontal view. It's your choice. An amazing tool. No installation required in your local computer. No SAP GUI installation, complete thing you can model, start building it right into the web IDE in the browser itself. Yeah. And now I want to add a step. So just click on this bubble. It's very, very easy against SWDD. Yes, you're right. And now just choose here, this is task type. And you see there are 4 types of tasks, which I told you. I didn't told you all 4. Actually, I was just telling you this first one, user task. Second type of task is called a server task. The third type is script task. And last one is called mail task. So as the name suggests, server task is for any external communication. You can call any auditor service to any server, be it your S4 HANA, ECC, Suite on HANA, any server you can call. Even not that all. Some people wanted to do, they called me for doing SuccessFactor integration. Yes, you can do that. In your SuccessFactor, if you have an API, you can call that API from this workflow. I have seen in one of the company, they have implemented a workflow for employee onboarding. A new employee joins the company. This particular employee want to probably get a device. There is a device which needs to be assigned. There's a mentor which is assigned to this employee, and then there's a manager who is assigned. So this employee go to the mentor, ask mentor what are all the things I would need in order to work, right? So mentor say order a laptop, order a device, order a secure card, order an ID card. 4 things you need to order. This guy goes and order these things. Then as part of next process, a manager approves these devices, manager approves the laptop and stuff like that, and then employee gets assigned to these devices. Similarly, in the next part of the workflow, he's assigned to a location where he has to go and sit. So this is a complete employee onboarding process which you can implement using workflow. So here the employee registration, employee details are fetched from SuccessFactor as part of first step. The next step, employee, the details of equipments for available laptops, devices is fetched from the ECC server. In the third step, when the employee manager information fetched from the S4 HANA server. Yeah. In the fourth step, there is a device which needs to be procured. If the device is not available, then device needs to be procured. Then it has to go to SRM purchasing application, which is available in some other application, other system. Yeah. So from there it has to fetch the information. And likewise, there are multiple systems which are orchestration and integrated in a single workflow. Such an amazing scenario you can build in your company. So server task for any external communication. This communication example could be an S4 HANA system communication. You can call a suite on HANA system. You can call a ECC system. You can call SuccessFactor. You can call any other external cloud services. Like in this case, what is that we are going to planning to call? We are planning to call Northwind, right? Northwind service. That's what we will do. Script task. In the script task, we can go ahead and then write some code, JavaScript code, to manipulate the context. Context, you remember what is context? Is the data which is floating in the workflow. You can do that. Sometimes you want to do conditional processing. Sometimes you want to do some looping, some data manipulation with the workflow context data. All that you can do in script task. Do not compare this as a successor of SWDD in ECC. Some people are thinking that is a successor of SWDD. No, it's a completely different thing. It has no connection to that SWDD in SAP GUI. Do not compare it with that. You think that whatever I create here, will it be created in my ECC system? No, that's a wrong assumption. It's a myth. Whatever you're creating here will remain here. It will be deployed in SAP Cloud Platform Workflow. It will not be delivered in ECC. It has no connection to your SWDD, which you create in SWDD. Some of you may think whatever you have in SWDD, can that be available here automatically? No, you have to build similar scenario here again. Okay, that is what you have to do. Mail task. Mail task is just to send an email. Okay, these are all the 4 types of tasks. Let's go ahead and create our first task where we want to now call this Auditor service, Northwind Auditor service on internet via destination. So I come back. My first task which I'm adding is actually a service server task. Okay, sorry, it's not server task, it's called service task. I did a wrong here. It's service task. I'm going to call a service to the server. So let's name this task any name you want to give. So guys, the ID remains fixed. You can't change it. Remember, this ID is very important for successive tasks. Now you can give some semantic name, call or load data for product. So load data in context of the workflow from product OData service from Northwind data based on product ID. So what is the input parameter to this step is the product ID. What is the output parameter of this will be the product data. Yeah. So input will be product ID. So you have to also initialize your workflow context. Go to the start step and here go to the details. And now you see configure sample context. Just click on that. And now you can create a JSON file to configure your sample context. I want to input the product ID to the context of my workflow. My input to the workflow is product ID. Yeah, that's what I want. So click on create file, give a file name. So I can say init context for which workflow, maybe my product workflow. Just do that. Click on OK. You will see that corresponding to the workflow name, a new sample data is created. You see sample data folder, your workflow name and the file is created here. It has put a sample JSON. We don't want this JSON, we will remove it. We want our own JSON. This is my workflow context. So I say product ID and I can hard code the value maybe 2. Just save this context. So I am now saving my workflow context. I saved it. This will be the starting point. This will be the input to my workflow. To start my workflow, I need some input, right guys? That is that input I am passing to my workflow. It's a JSON, sample JSON I configured now. In next step here, I have to use that value, this particular value, this value I want to use. How do you use the value? You can use the naming convention which is offered by Workflow BPM. It's actually a special naming convention which has been taken from Java technology. It's called dollar context naming convention. So you can use dollar context to read that value. So dollar context product ID is the variable name. I want to read that. So I can come back now, select my service tab, go to details, and now we're going to use the destination name. Which service you want to call? You want to call S4 HANA? You want to call ECC, Suite on HANA, or any external service? What is the destination we created? Let's go back, check in our account, the destination which we created. Where is my destination? Here it is. And the name of the destination was Northwind. Yeah, this is the destination name. Let's take that up. I can copy this just to avoid any mistake and put here as a destination name. Clear everybody? From where to where? What is the source? What is the target? From there we have picked up it. Now choose the service form. Is this a service from SAP API Hub? SAP API Hub is also a place where SAP is publishing some ready-to-use APIs for you, like currency conversion. You want to convert a value from one currency to another. Go to SAP API Hub. They're offering it. They're also offering some machine learning APIs. where you can pass an image, and the image, what is displayed in that image, it will tell you. Yeah. For example, I recently used one of the API to pass an image with a bill. It will use a bill. I have my hotel bill. I pass that to the API Hub API, Leonardo Machine Learning API, and from that bill, it has extracted the bill amount for me. That was a machine learning API which I used. So that you can use here from API Hub. I will say others. Path of the API. Let's go and take it up the path. So now I can go back. This is the path which I will take. And I would also need the data output in JSON. So I take the complete path, copy that, and come to my workflow, put the path. Now here, this ID should not be hard coded, right? What do you think instead of 3 hard coded ID of the product, what should we pass? Anybody? What should we pass here instead of this hard coded ID 3? Anybody? What should we pass instead of this hard coded ID 3? We need to pass the data from our initialization, right? Workflow context. So this data we need to pass. So I will go back. Watch out how to write this, how to read the data from context. So come here, instead of 3, put dollar symbol, curly braces, context. This is what is indicating the workflow context, guys. The data which is floating in the workflow is indicated by this. In this context, I have a product ID. That is the ID I want to pass. Clear, everybody, how to read the workflow context and pass the value to the service dynamically. Now it should be a get call. We are making a get call, and the response should be picked up again in context. Your workflow context should get the response. So I say again dollar curly braces context dot, and I will say here maybe my product data. So what system will do? It will automatically create a product data variable for you in the context of workflow, and there it will initialize all the data for you. Okay, that's it. Right now, very simple one-step process. The moment your workflow will start, it will just run. It will load the data. It will just close the workflow. So instance will start, no approval, no user task. It will simply run and close. Okay, it will just use to read the data right now. I just save this, my workflow. Remember, you have to first deploy the project. Right click on the project, deploy this project to SAP Cloud Platform. Just deploy. I give my password. And I'll say remember me. And now I will also right click on the workflow. Don't miss this step. Very important step. Right click on workflow and say deploy my workflow to SAP Cloud Platform workflow. Okay, just do that. You see it is also completed successfully. Now we can test our workflow. What this workflow will do right now, anybody? What it will do? It will simply load the data from that OData service and put that data in workflow context. Later point of time, this data can be used to do further things. Is it possible to deploy in ECC or S4HANA? I don't think so. We cannot deploy in ECC and S4HANA. We have to deploy it only in SAP Cloud Platform. You can see that's the only option we have. Okay. Now let's come back. This is why with S4HANA subscription, SAP is also offering SAP Cloud Platform subscription. So majority of the scenarios are done today in conjunction with SAP Cloud Platform. You will see in upcoming days when I'll show you some extensibility scenario, we will extend a standard S4HANA cloud application with SAP Cloud Platform. So SAP Cloud Platform is going hand in hand together with SAP S4HANA subscription these days. So I'm sure, ask your administrator in your company, you must have SAP Cloud Platform subscription if your company has purchased SAP S4HANA. For sure, they will be having an SAP S4HANA provider account for you to be able to do all these stuff in the company. If not, at least you can practice all this stuff in your trial account. We are done. Let's go back to here, this application, and now I'll say monitor workflow. I want to see all the workflow. There you go. You can see your first version of the workflow which you created just now is available. And I say show instances. Right now there is nothing running. That's why no instance is available. Let's go back. Are we ready to start our workflow for testing? How do you do that? Anybody? Any guess? How do you test your workflow now? Just click on start new instance. Voila. Do you remember this was the JSON I had created? This was the JSON for initializing my context I had created. It is putting it here. You can change the product ID. I want to load product data for product 3. Say start a new instance. You can see workflow instance started. You can just go back to home page, go to monitor workflow instances, and now just apply a filter. Just clear all the filters. Say okay. No instance, and voila. You see there's one workflow instance and the status is completed. What are all the different status for a workflow? Any guess, anybody? What are all the different statuses for a workflow? Anyone? One is in process. Okay, this makes it to ready state for a task. The task is ready to take an action by user. So workflow is in process, which is in ready state. Okay, second is completed. Third is erroneous. You can also see these statuses over there in the app itself. Let me go back to app. You can see them here. Running is in process. Erroneous, which has gotten into an error. Completed was it was successfully completed. Suspended means it was cancelled by it was suspended, it was terminated completely. You cannot resume it anymore. Cancelled means it was just suspended in the middle. Okay, that is what cancel means. So cancel means you cannot start it again. Suspend means you can resume it again. Okay. So cancelled, completed, erroneous, running, and suspended. Suspend can be resumed. Cancelled can never be resumed. It was terminated completely. You can never resume it again. That work item or that workflow instance. These are workflow instance statuses. Okay. So we have uh, in process, which was continuing, completed, erroneous. We have then suspended, which can be resumed, and we have cancelled, which cannot be resumed, which is terminated by admin. Okay, that is all. We have 5 statuses here. So right now you see there was just one task and it was completed. There is no error. It was completed successfully. And now see, go to workflow context and voila. Can you see we pass product ID 3? It has got the product data and initialized my workflow context. You see it has read the data from the auditor service and loaded that data in my workflow context. Congratulations guys, your first workflow is ready, which is reading a data from an auditor service which is externally available via destination. In our next session I will show you completing this workflow. As next step, we will write a script task. In the script task I will edit I will edit the data, and that edited data I will supply to our custom screen. So we will have a custom screen. In that custom screen, it will show work item to the user. Whatever data you loaded from service, that will be displayed. So you can also design, think of a scenario. You have data in S4 HANA system. You can call an S4 HANA auditor service from your SAP Cloud Platform. Load the data, change the data if you want. If you don't want, ignore it, and then give a user work item to the user. That's all you can do. And that's how once user take a decision, do something, and then further on it will take an action. Yeah. Scripting is similar to formatter concept. No, scripting is little different. We will see that in the next chapter. I think we are already overshooted the time. We have learned a lot today. Please practice this. Enable the workflow system, enable the workflow service in your cloud account. In the next class, we will go ahead and complete this workflow. Okay. So those who want to subscribe for my training, you can go to my website onlinefurytrainings.com. And the current training which is going on is about SAP WebIDE Full-stack with SAP Fiori Launchpad and advanced Fiori features. You can subscribe to this particular course. This is the current course which we are into. You can subscribe for this course from my website, or you can also drop me an email. Thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. Please feel free to write your comments below in the chat window. Or if you feel this video is helpful for you, please do not hesitate to like, subscribe, and share this video with your colleagues.
We have also given an edge to our Auditor service for our demo scenario for fruits JSON. So we have three database tables in our demo scenario. The first table contains the information about